So please just ignore my messy hair throughout this video. Hey friends, it's Kathleen, and today I'm going to be doing my end of May and June wrap up. If you've been watching my videos recently, you'll know that I was in Europe for 3 weeks in the end of May and then the beginning of June, and I did a video talking about the 3 books I'd read up to the middle of June, but I wanted to talk about the ones that I read while I was away mainly, and then everything I've read in June, so I'm just combining them into one video. I'm really sorry there was no video on Tuesday. I'm actually filming this on Tuesday night and I just did not have time to get anything done. I've recently taken on a new research project that kind of just came at me, so I'm working on that and that's taken quite a bit of my time. So I do apologize for that. YouTube is something I really like and I really enjoy, and I really hate that I'm not sticking on schedule already, but hopefully that will not remain true in the future and I will be able to be on schedule. So there should be another video coming at you on Tuesday. Nonetheless, if you want to see all the books that I read in end of May and then to June, then just keep watching. The first book I got to last month was When Dimple Met Rishi by Sanjay Manan. When Dimple Met Rishi is about this girl named Dimple who is a computer coder, and she has these very strict Indian parents who want to set her up with the ideal Indian husband. And she's not really interested in that. She's only dated a couple guys and she really doesn't want an arranged marriage at all. So when her parents intend to send her off to computer camp, she thinks they're finally being supportive of her dreams, until she meets Rishi, who turns out to be the boy that her parents intend for her to have an arranged marriage with in the future, and they thought it was very convenient that they could have them meet early at this camp when both of them expressed interest in it. There are so many wonderful things about this book, I honestly don't know if I could talk about all of them. But first of all, there's awesome diversity as 2 Indian main protagonists. There's a bisexual character who's kind of slipped in there and mentioned, which is really cool. I personally never read a book with an arranged marriage, and I thought it was really interesting. I also liked that they didn't portray an arranged marriage as just evil and trying to force 2 people together who don't want to be together. So I thought that was really good, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It's such a cute, easy, fun read. It made me laugh so much. So I adored this book. I love it. My heart sings with how much I love this book, so 5 out of 5 stars. It was great. The next book I picked up this month was 4 Weeks, 5 People by Jennifer Yu. By the way, I had both this book and the other one and a couple more on this list as arcs from Indigo. Anyway, this book is about 5 teens who get sent to wilderness therapy, and they all have conflicting personalities and issues that they deal with, and they all have to try to deal with those issues in wilderness therapy. Honestly, this was not the most satisfactory read. It was pretty disappointing in parts. One thing that I liked was I liked that the characters were portrayed realistically and their illnesses weren't treated as something that was just going to be solved instantly. I thought that that was done really well. But at the same time, I felt like there were characters in this book who had absolutely no development. They were literally the exact same from beginning to end, and there was no solution presented, which bothered me so much. I did like that in here there was a romance, but it wasn't portrayed as just the solution to their problems. These characters still had their issues, they still had things they dealt with, but other than the mental illnesses in the book and how well they were portrayed, I didn't think there was anything particularly creative or unique about this book. It wasn't dull. Like, the first 150 pages were actually pretty good, and then after that, yeah, maybe it was a bit dull. It kind of fell flat for me. I didn't think it was that great, but it probably would have gone 3.5 or 4 stars for me if it hadn't been for this one character who just does not develop through the whole book. It made me so mad. He annoyed me so much, and then he was the exact same by the end. And she didn't even try to make it seem like there was a chance for him to change. He was just a jerk, and you knew that he had issues and that was why he was a jerk, but there was no opportunity for him to grow as a character, even though everybody else did. So that drove me mad, and as a result, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I managed to get to this month was an oldie but a goodie, and that's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I was totally inspired to reread this after seeing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and they were going through book 4 and doing all the things that happened in book 4, and I just loved that, and it made me want to reread the whole series. So I'm currently on book 5, but as I said, I was rereading book 4. I read it mainly on a bunch of train rides and things like that, and it was just so good. I forgot how well plotted book 4 is. I think it tends to slip people's minds a lot. I know it's an important book in the series, but I feel like it's not that popular, mainly because a lot of people think it has plot holes, but I actually think it's done so well and everything wraps up so well. There's so many good twists in this book that just make it awesome. So I'm a huge fan. This is my favorite book in the series, guys. I love this one so much. I absolutely gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I really believe that this is one of those ones that gets better the longer that you reread it. I will maintain Goblet of Fire is one of the worst films, but the book is, in my opinion, the best in the series. So yes, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, my approval. The next book I finished this month, I actually gave it, in my opinion, a bit of a premature rating, and that is It's Not Like It's a Secret by Misa Seguira. I'm totally pronouncing that wrong. Please correct me. I need to be corrected on these things. I get things wrong all the time. Basically, this is about a Japanese girl named Sana who moves from her Midwestern town to San Francisco, and there she meets this girl in a store that she starts to fall for, and she turns out to be the same girl that she goes to school with as well, and she joins the track team to get closer towards her, but at the same time she's dealing with a lot of conflicting feelings about her identity. She doesn't know if maybe she could like a guy as well. There's one who really likes her and she's not sure what she feels towards him. As well, she's also dealing with the fact that she thinks her dad might be having an affair, and that is a huge plot throughout this novel. I absolutely loved this. I think I loved it a little less than I thought I did at first, but there's a lot of really great stuff in here. First of all, it discusses racism between different groups of people of color. And that was such an interesting thing. I'd never seen that addressed in a book before, so I loved that about it. It really delves into the differences between different Asian groups, the different types of racism that people who are Asian face versus the types of racism that people who are Mexican face. And it doesn't shy away from those issues. And it also has the characters learn and grow from their mistakes and realize that they can hurt people and that they're not perfect. I enjoyed this a lot. I thought that the romance was good. It was pretty cute for the most part. There is one thing in here that I didn't love, but I didn't hate it, which is surprising for me because I don't like storylines with cheating. Some of you may know this, but I do not. I really don't like them. And there was a character who engaged in such an activity, but I didn't hate them for it and I was rooting for them by the end. If you've ever read Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan, then I think this is actually really similar. I really liked this. I think I would give it 4 out of 5 stars now just because my feelings about it have cooled down a little bit. I was reading it on a plane ride and I think I was thinking to myself, wow, this is the best book ever, but it's not exactly. It's really, really good and I think it did a great job at what it was trying to accomplish, but I don't know that it's necessarily a 5-star read, so 4 out of 5 stars. I'm about 90% positive that this is the next book I got to this month, but that is No Good Deed by Goldie Modolfsky. I featured this in my April book haul, and to be quite honest, I got that so wrong. I didn't know what that book was about at all. I thought it was going to be a catty high school novel where the main characters all go at each other. I hadn't even read the front jacket, so clearly I didn't know what I was talking about, but this book could not be more different from that. If you've read Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Moldavsky, you kind of know what you might be in for with this book, but if you haven't, let me just give you an idea. Goldie Moldavsky writes really weird books. She writes these books that are essentially parodies, but they're affectionate parodies of groups, and they're really fun, and they feature the characters from the inside, so you never feel like she's really making fun of them. It's definitely a laugh with you, not at you kind of situation. Anyway, she writes them really well, and she has this incredible sense of humor. She really knows how to dig deep into wordplay and to make every situation amusing. I think she writes some of the smartest YA books that I've found in recent years, so I definitely recommend her if you're looking for a bit of a more intellectual YA read. But to get into what this book is about a boy named Gregor, who goes to a camp called Camp Save the World, being held by his hero, Robert Drill, who is a sort of parody of Bill Gates. He's a man who has this big tech foundation and then started giving all his money away to charity and wrote a bunch of books about how giving money is important and how he really has changed his own life by doing so. And our character Gregor decides that he's going to have the cause Save the Children, and he goes to a camp where everybody else has some kind of cause. And the idea behind the camp is that they're all going to become better activists and they're going to learn how to protest and things like that. And at the end, there's supposed to be this reward where someone can get an internship in Florida and they can start to work on whatever cause they're heading towards. So as you can imagine, things don't go exactly well in this book for our main character. The camp turns out to be not what he thinks it is, and of course that makes it incredibly hilarious. There's a lot of people at the camp who will easily throw away their ideals and their morals, and they go a little too far in pushing their causes. Now, this sounds almost like it's making fun of social justice warriors, but it's totally not. There's characters who are referred to only by their causes, and that's actually the majority of the characters. So there's one who's gluten-free, and she's just known as gluten-free, and she tries to stop people eating bread. And then there's one called Save the World with Song, who just runs around singing songs all the time. And then there's Feminism, who gets into fights with men's rights all the time. It's hilarious. I really, really recommend this book. It's so entertaining. I had such a fun time reading it, honestly. There's a bit of romance, but it's not unbelievable. I thought the main character wasn't necessarily the most exciting person ever, but I don't think he needed to be. I think he was definitely the perfect picture of that character who thinks he's gonna save the world just by being himself. So I thought it was great. I thought this was such a funny book. I loved it. I think I read it in a couple of days. So I highly, highly recommend this. I hope this is on more people's radars, honestly, because I think Golden Moldavsky is running some of the smartest YA books. I said that before, but I'll say it again. So I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month, I actually read on audiobook, and that was History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This book left me a complete wreck. I could not deal with my emotions after I finished it. The first little while wasn't the most exciting thing, but it just crept up and made it so interesting. This book is about a boy named Griffin whose ex-boyfriend Theo dies in a drowning accident, and he always thought that him and Theo were going to get back together eventually, that they were endgame, and now he's starting to see that that won't happen. As well, he starts to realize that the only person who can really seem to understand him is Jackson, and he starts to push away his friend Wade, who was the other member of their trio, as he deals with his mourning. This is such a beautiful book, and it's so well done. This is definitely very highly sensitive subject matter, but I think Adam Silvera just handles it so well. His teenagers just seem so normal, so real, so relatable that you honestly feel their pain, you understand them completely. So I thought it was incredible. It tore up my heart in places where I just didn't expect it to, and honestly, it had so many twists that I was not prepared for. One thing about listening to it that I would really recommend is that you can't look ahead and see what's going to happen. So I was completely unprepared for random plot twists at the end of chapters and things like that, and I thought that was actually something that really added to the experience, so I highly recommend listening to this on Audible. It was narrated by Tom Picasso, who did a really, really great job. He seemed so teenager-like, and I totally understood the mind of Griffin. Also, I think going into this book, it may seem like something where you think, oh, I'm going to sympathize with Griffin, he's going to be the best, but your mind will change so many times throughout this book. You will not have the same opinion on any of the characters that you had at the beginning as at the end. Everything reverses towards the end, and you start to realize that the main characters might not be as reliable as you thought they were going to be. So I completely loved this book. It absolutely deserves all the praise it could get. It's my first Adam Silvera book, so I have to say I'm definitely excited to pick up other ones of his. I think he's really, really a great writer, so I'm excited. I have more Happy Than Not at home, and I'm excited to dive into it. So without a doubt, History Is All You Left Me got 5 out of 5 stars from me. I thought it was one of the best books that I've read this year so far. I actually forgot about this one, but I did also get to another book while I was on my trip, and that was The Fashion Committee by Susan Juby. Anyone who knows me or follows me knows that I love The Truth Commission by the same author. It's one of my favorite YA books ever. Definitely my favorite Canadian YA, but that's slim pickings. This is about 2 people, a girl and a boy, who both enter a fashion competition. They both want to get a scholarship to a school called Green Pastures Academy for Arts, which is the same school featured in the Truth Commission. And one of them wants to actually study fashion. She lives for fashion. She's this wildly ridiculous character. She has crazy outfits, crazy makeup every day. She's awesome. Anyway, she really, really wants to get into the school for fashion, and the other boy wants to get into the school just to get in and then switch to woodworking, I think? No, metalworking. He wants to switch to metalworking, and so he's only using fashion as a way into the school. I don't want to talk too much about this book because I'm actually going to be featuring it in another video I'm doing somewhat soonish. We'll see. But anyway, I thought it was really, really good. It's definitely not as good as The Truth Commission, but it had the same sort of fun characterization and over-the-top but believable people that you found in The Truth Commission, and the same quirky sense of humor that I really love and I've kind of come to expect from Susan Juby. Like No Good Deed, it has a very weird sense of humor, but I think once you get used to it, you'll actually really like it. I would recommend The Truth Commission over this one, but I still think this is really good, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the final book I got to this month was One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This book is a teen mystery novel following 4 teens after they're in detention with a boy who drops dead after ingesting a bit of peanut oil from a cup of water he was drinking from, and the four of them are suspected for having committed the murder or having plotted it together. I've heard this book described as an adequate mystery YA novel, and I would agree with that description. I don't think this is a bad book, but I don't think it's particularly new, and I don't think it's particularly challenging. And honestly, I think my main issue with this book is not that I guessed exactly who did it, because I didn't have it 100% right. I knew a part of it, but I didn't have the whole thing correct. But at the same time, I definitely knew who didn't do it. And that bothered me. I didn't feel like there was any mystery or real suspense to it for that reason. There was definitely this feeling of who actually did it, and I hoped it would be a character I would have no clue could have done it, but I wasn't really as shocked as I could have been. And this is gonna be a little spoilery here, so I'm just gonna, if you don't want to hear spoilers, just skip ahead. I will put a little timestamp. But I think that comes down to the fact that there's really no suspense when it comes to the main characters. You're reading about them, and you don't really feel like any of them could have done it. And I think that comes down to the fact that the author just probably isn't skilled enough to pull off the unreliable narrator trope in this book. I don't think it really worked if that's what she was going for, and I don't think it was done very well. As well, these characters were also huge cliches. Oh my goodness, I compared this to The Breakfast Club, but I didn't even know how accurate that was. This is literally just all the characterizations from The Breakfast Club, except some of the roles are gender reversed and things like that. At the very least, they do acknowledge the fact that they're cliches, but I don't think the author did a great job of dealing with that issue, and they never really break out of those cliches. Nonetheless, I did feel a drive to find out what happened, and to be honest, I think that's just because I'm terrible at guessing plot twists, so I thought it was going to be something remarkable that I would never have guessed in a million years. It really wasn't, but it was something I was a little bit surprised by. So although this book didn't amaze me, I really think that it did make me want to read more mystery books, so I'm actually hoping to get into some more mystery books soon, because this made me enjoy the sort of whole waiting to find out the twist and trying to piece it together on your own thing. That was definitely something I really enjoyed about this book. One final criticism was that when I first read this, I thought this was going to take place over one day in a classroom, and I think that's how the description makes it sound, but it doesn't. It takes place over the span of several weeks, and honestly, I thought that made it way less interesting. I think it would have been a much more interesting plot if it had been over the course of one detention. I think that would have been way more unique, so I would have really enjoyed that a lot. Nonetheless, I don't think this is really bad. I did give it 3 out of 5 stars, so I think this is a decent mystery YA novel, but it doesn't blow my socks off completely. So that's all the books that I read in the month of June. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books or if they're on your TBR. I'm really curious. Definitely curious if you guys had some more thoughts. Nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you did, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!